Need to take a little break, right? We still got a lot of games to handle, so we're going to send it to our analysts to break it all down.
Thank you guys so much. A fantastic way to kick things off here in NAE's game 1 of Major number 1. My gosh, it feels somehow the same, but a lot different.
Chaos ensues, right? And that's pretty much exactly what we wanted coming into Major number 1. All the stakes were on the line. We said that the roadmap was laid out. The players needed to come in and show us what they really had, and I feel like they really did that in game number 1.
And it's exciting, too, because we got a little bit of everything here. We saw some of that high ground action with Kanata and Agers. They were commanding that hype layer for the longest time, up until Not and Nosh started to try and push them off. We saw a brief drop from Agers and Kanata, but then instantly retake that height layer. And it's important because of the fact that they were just able to secure so many elims, so many tags throughout, just applying a lot of pressure onto those mid and low ground sections.
And you can see right here, just absolutely annoying the heck out of Nosh. And they just kept breaking down any high ground that they had built. But I mean, this is exactly what I wanted to see out of Kanata and Agers. I mentioned that they were so good at Storm Surge last chapter. They made it to every single end game. I just feel like they didn't find enough eliminations. And then coming into half zone this game, actually, they already had 4 eliminations. And of course, closing that game right there with 8. That is exactly the form I want to see them in.
But despite having all of that high ground control, again, it was the low ground that actually ended up dominating here. And Yamzo and Rise, very similar storyline to what we've been seeing from them throughout these Elite Cup weekly finals. They have just been completely destroying everyone that tries to challenge them on these low ground sections. They kind of snuck underneath. There was a brief instance where I believe Clix almost had the opportunity to try and challenge him with Donnie. Unfortunately, that duo just got a little bit too split. So Yamzo, Rise, they just continue to maneuver throughout this low ground area, building out to make sure that they had a literal empire on the ground.
Yeah, and I mean, the playstyle that we're going to see throughout the Major, maybe even the entirety of the year from Yamzo and Rise, is that they love to go to the front side of the low ground of zone, but they don't do it into like the later moving zones actually, and it always works out for them so well. But one of the plays that I really loved out of them right there is that they actually had that low ground position, but then they went back and went up to actually find a refresh. So big awareness from them right there.
You can tell some of these duos have already adapted, right, to everything that Chapter 4 has to offer. Here we go to take a look at the standings from just game number 1. Of course, Yamzo Rise, massive victory royale there, leading the pack with 109 points now. Remember, this is just game 1. We have another 5 games here in week number 1, but still a kind of an awesome showing to just kind of start off the competition.
A pretty action-packed top 4 as well. I mean, 11 elims, 9 elims, 9 elims, 10 elims. Yep. It's kind of fantastic to see that we are getting exactly what we asked for, and we're telling these players, hey, are you going to be aggressive or not? And I mean, with how chaotic these late games have been, it's just so hard not to run into someone, especially because there were many instances where we saw those shockwave hammers almost working against the individuals that were using them, because if you're not careful with direction, Levin mentioned it, you might just wind up in somebody's box, or you could be Peterbot and just catch them off guard from behind.
I really quickly wanted to touch on Coop, who was there, caught in the end game, went down 4th, but he was solo. What happened? What led us to that moment?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, Taco, it begins at the early game, right? The south side of Salapi is where his run actually began.
And it's incredible, too, because Acorn and Cole, they've been doing such a fantastic job leading into this first week of Major 1, but Cooper and Seek, they do not care. They took the immediate contest off spawn, they win it out, and from that moment on, they were able to establish so much early game surge management that they were able to just prioritize the positional advantages. And even with the solo instance there for Cooper, still at 4 elims by the end of it, 5 total for the duo. And again, a solo clutch into that top 5, always fantastic.
Yeah, 100%. And then now we're actually going to run through some of these highlights from that solo clutch. And, you know, as you can see here, hide and seek going out a little bit early. And this is where that shockwave hammer plays such a pivotal part right there. Maybe getting a little bit lucky on the John. They're just kind of finding himself in the box. But nonetheless, you know, it's a random situation that happens, but he seems like he is so on top of it, always prepared. And that's why we can find them in 5th place right now. Can't wait to see what they can do when they're actually a formulaic duo in that end game.
Yeah, the shockwave hammers, man, just makes the game so insanely dynamic. You just never know when someone can show up. Now, obviously, if your duo is kind of like expecting it, it's a little easier to combat. Yeah. But like a lot of these plays we just saw, it was like chaos, right? They just show up. Where are you in my box? What's going on? Where's my wall? It was amazing.
You know, it's funny from like a player's perspective. Of course, you have to always be on your toes and ready for pretty much anything. But I feel like us as spectators and everybody at home, you also have to be on your toes because so many things can just happen at a whim's notice.
That's right. Let's head on back here. It is almost that time for the next game on the day. So just really quickly, thoughts. Are we maybe hoping to see anything different in game 2? Because I feel like for me, man, let's just run that back.
I'm ready to just run it back. I'm honestly, get us off. Get them in.
Let's go. What do you think, Vivid?
More of that, yeah. Just world formulaic stuff. Hopefully, Acorn and Code can turn around in game number 2.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's that time. Game number 2 is upon us. Buckle up, everybody. Let's run it.
Well, our analysts said they want to see more of game 1. I promise you one thing, we're going to have more and even better, Jacob.
Yeah, hopefully they laced up their shoes or even changed them depending on where they're at in the leaderboard. Because this is a marathon. This is not a race. You got to be able to stay consistent through those games because don't fret. You might look at the leaderboard, over 100 points, Yamso and Rise. It's not out of reach.
Yeah, look, we might end up sounding very repetitive today because once again, the players are on the battle bus. They are ready to hop towards their POIs. And just like the start of every single competitive Fortnite game, the focus will be on contestant. Who will win Osborne? Who will be victorious in where they land?
Baila and Penn still taking their same tower. Fredbot, Akame, kind of contesting the whole other side of Breakwater Bay. You got to be careful because it was last time where Baila was able to get one of the first 2 eliminations in this same spot. And it looks like it might play out again. Fredbot, Gutter Leaf, taking a little bit distant between their counterparts on the other side. C's already getting one as well. Blake getting one. Everybody getting active very, very early.
Yeah, man, it's not looking good, right? When you land off spawn and get taken out so quickly, you feel like you ain't even got a chance to get a feel for the lobby yet. That is never, ever ideal. So many players falling though in our feet. It looks like Acorn's gone down again. So there's a lot happening. I'm sure we'll try to catch up on it all because big names going down, but Baila will fall as well. And so now all up to M-Pen, and as good of a player as he is, he will not have the facilities to handle it.
And you can already see somebody trying to sneak back, trying to take over. There's Rise and Yamso not having that same sort of luck this time around. I told you, we gotta go ahead and have that consistent gameplay through and through, but it's a 1v1. Rise versus Braids. Rise gonna go ahead and heal up. Braids not getting into the action just yet. He's trying to go ahead and play for the revive onto Moo. This is gonna be an interesting tactic, but if it pays off, Levin, it could pay off tenfold.
What is Braids cooking? Will he be able to hold on and get the revive? It looks like it. Just a couple of seconds. Will he hold on? No, he's not going to get it, but he'll still win the fight. Braids! I cannot believe what I've just seen. Our game 1 winners, Yamso and Rise, one of the best duos so far this season. They have fallen in game 2.
Yeah, we already talked about Acorn going down early. And Booga and Paterbot trying to take full advantage of the situation, taking that POI and calling it theirs. And we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at the replay. How did this action start?
Peterbot doing what he does best. Harassing players that cause him issues. A big shot there. Wow, he just turns around. 180, 180, 360, he'll just hit a shot. Doesn't matter. It's like aim training for him. And those guys will be over the moon. If you're Booga and Peterbot, right, you know you have one of the best duos in the world landing at your POI, but they just have another duo just dealing with them every single time. You can just walk in and clean up. They will be ecstatic about how this day has started for them and how this game in particular has started for them. Will they be able to capitalize, though, with how great of a POI Slappy Shores is? I'd like to hope so. Switching gears, though, right back into the swing of things. Another fight here, and it's North Tate and Duke who will be looking to win this one.
And you can already see how many builds they're expending rather quickly. But Saucy, he's separated in a 2v1 situation here. And that's where Top G and Duke, they know exactly. They can be patient. They don't have to rush. The Saucy trying to go down, trying to go out. Use the static launch pad. Cone over the head. Denied. Access no more. And he finally goes down altogether. The huge elimination being picked up, just like on one side of the map to the other. Everybody picking up these early eliminations allows them to focus on their rotations.
It's actually really good for them that he was able to drop down into this building and they could confirm the elimination, because there was a team from afar taking shots. They almost stole the elim away. That wouldn't have been ideal for them. Nevertheless, another fight. The Excalibur being put to use here by Muzz. He's not a happy man right now because DGen is down and he does not want that. Tahi causing issues. So he wants revenge.
You can already see them adapting on the fly. Death and Tahi going down to Storm Surge in that last game. They know they need the damage very early on. They already got an elim onto DJ, but a huge shot by Muzz. Wins the 1v1, takes out Tahi, and now he has that whole POI to get DJ back into the game.
Yeah, you can't mess around with Big Muzz. He will make you regret every single action you take. A very, very impressive player and showing us why there. Some brilliant mechanics on display. Clix and Donny though, we saw what they did in that first game, and by no means are they done just yet.
And I like Pamso and Fatch here. They were separated for the beginning of the Elite Cups. Obviously, popping off big. 4th place, 68 points. Reunited never felt so good for these two. It's like they never left in this situation as XF and Dubs trying to have the high ground. Another team approaching, trying to put in the shots.
And I think the thing with Pamsu and Fatch, right, we saw there in the top right, they've been playing together longer than any duo in this lobby, right? And if you're Pamsu in that last game, you're watching Fatch and you trust him to get the job done, to deliver something special. And that's such a key element, right? So many of the duos in this lobby are competing with each other for the first competitive season, right? You know, sort of getting used to each other still maybe. But these guys, they know each other well at the back of their hands. And that goes a long way at the top level. For Dubs though, and Except, in session 1 they were super impressive. So we'll see whether they can match that energy now. Certainly doing a good job so far in this fight. Fatch now is hoping and wishing that he can survive this one. Those two just applying copious amounts of pressure and taking Pamsu out along the way. Nicely executed.
That had to be hard, though. That had to be very hard. Encrypted and Ducky on one side. And you got Chimp and Spade on the other. And usually we're talking about third parties, but guess what? They sent out 2 extra invites. You got a 4th party as well. And immediately, as soon as that one's done, Dubs and XF are like, I don't want to be in this situation anymore. I have to be able to get out. I have to rotate. And because they knew who exactly landed at their POI, they knew they got taken out, they know exactly which direction they can begin to rotate right back into.
Seeing the red eye being put to good use here.
Uh-oh. Big possible opportunity for Clix and Donny as well. Ocus on the high ground, just melting away Clix's shields, backing him down, but backing him down right back into Donny. No harm, no foul, as long as they can kind of regenerate the shields and HP that was just lost.
Clix falling asleep there for a second and punished for it. Don't like to see that from the big Clix. Does have the shield so to get himself just a bit back up. But again, when you are so central in the map, Jacob, it can be so hard for these teams to take these kind of fights because there are so many players all around you. 360 degrees you have to worry about. It is very, very difficult.
It's just one of those annoyances. It's like a fly out of a picnic
Exactly.
when you're trying to go ahead and take your battle, get your shots, and then it's just 4th, 5th, 6th parties just go ahead and trying to lend a helping hand.
Because most of the time, they're never, going to get the elim per se. But, that extra 50 HP that they chunk off from like 300 meters, it goes a long way in these fights, right? So, perfectly put, right, in terms of just being an annoying fly that you can't seem to get rid of.
Especially at my picnic. I like food. Walker's, he likes high ground. He likes storm surge damage. And that's exactly what he's going to do over towards Anvil Score. We got to be careful, though, because all the initial teams that did rotate there are already rotating out. They're trying to get themselves a better spot in zone, so they're just hoping that other teams that landed towards the outskirts are going to use that as a rotational path to try to get in the zone.
Yeah, it's an interesting game here. Champa, you saw how their game came to an end. It wasn't the most ideal. They didn't have the best of positions and trying to move into that 5th zone. Had a max pull 4th, and so they'll probably feel like they got a bit unlucky. But nevertheless, can't rely on zone luck in these kind of games. TK relying that there's nobody else in the zone anywhere near so that he can pick Pledge up. Mega and Justice going to be looking to refarm with this building. The materials aren't ideal, right? And that's one of the problems in terms of, being in some of these central POIs. This biome in general, this season on the map, isn't the best for metal, right? And so you'll see a lot of teams with low counts like this having to get creative in terms of where they go to get their metal.
All those stoves on the inside, everything's getting scavenged for. And it's even harder when you are in one of those contested spots like Faulty Splits to where, yeah, you're getting a chance at such good loot, and that is a little bit of a trade-off, but you risk not being able to farm, not being able to mat up, on top of the lack of actual resources that are gatherable in that POI. You see where the next zone is going to pull a little bit more towards the center, which you can already see the map. That's where it is going to be a bit slower.
Yeah, for sure. For Joji and Rokane, you can see their setup isn't too bad. They'll have the chance to sort of take those sort of shots from a distance like we were discussing when it comes to all these players and trying to get above the surge threshold. I would love to know, though, one of the teams who we saw so much of last game, the third place team, Canada and Ages, right? They're able to make it deep in games. They want to refine the end bits, but what are they doing in some of the earlier moments? We got Mini Miner here on the side to fill us in on what they're doing.
11, they are taking absolutely no risks whatsoever. They're building a huge tunnel at their drop spot, Faulty Splits, giving them so much real estate to get Storm Surge tags. Of course, this also enables them to put some heals safe and collect all of the heals up at the top, so that then, of course, they can use those when they're going for tags and potentially getting hit. Beautiful stuff from this duo. Let's see them pop off again.
I think that's one of the interesting things to follow, right? The strategies players are using, the small little techniques and tricks that go into making sure you can stay above the surge threshold. Of course, shields go a long way in that, right, Jacob? Because, you know, if you need to deal damage, there's often a good chance you're going to take some damage. And so when you've got that extra bit of shields in the reserve, it just allows you to be a bit more zealous in your attempts to be aggressive and take fights.
And I get that feeling of deja vu because last time I've really seen a strategy like that pay off. And yeah, it's used. It's a very common strategy. Gather all the heals. That way you can trade shots. But the last time it really paid off, Seti and Cammy, EU, FNCS Invitational. Throughout 2 days, they got 4 victory royales. And so you got to imagine, at least the blueprint here for Canada and Ages has already been laid, knowing exactly what to do, trading those shots. And oh my God, 3 straight tags. Shield just ripped right off.
This guy is unreal. You can expect to see him hit shots like that over and over again. That's what the red eye is for. And that's why you'll see a lot of these teams pick it up, just because it allows you to hit shots like that. You're not likely to hit shots like that with an assault rifle, just a regular one. The red eye, though, that extra bit of precision you get being able to aim down sights is huge.
Yep. Warrior and ABN, 221 above the damage threshold. They got static rotation next to them, so even though they're not in the zone, they are close by and they have plenty of options to work with. TK and Pledge, I'm actually really interested in their story for this game. Pledge was taken out early, gone. TK used a lot of time, taking a lot of damage in the storm just to get Pledge back into this one and give him a second chance at life.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to have to be, you know, a story of uphill battle, because they are down when it comes to everything. In terms of surge, they're barely above. The materials are horrific at this stage in the game. Absolutely no metal for Pledge, barely any brick. It is not setting up to be the best of games for a duo who has been rather impressive so far this weekend. And so don't let this moment here, you know, be your only judgment of them as a team. They do have more to show. But this game is never over, right? They can always turn things around.
Quick stat, Peterbot and Booga are the only previous FNCS champs competing together today in NAE, and just goes to show that even though during, you know, regular cups, the off season and things like that, Booga's not necessarily there, he really rises to the occasion when these big major FNCS is rolling around. That goes to show that nerves are just not a thing for him. They're just not in his body at all, not in his anatomy.
Hey, there's a reason many consider him the greatest of all time, right? He's done it in the big stages and he'll continue to do so. Of course, though, this is a big stage and a stage that you'll have to perform on if you want to gain the respect of your region, and these kind of fights are the ones you have to win if you want to make your way there.
See Poxy and Tetro, they were going for it, 153 below the damage threshold, but he peeks, takes a huge shot back from Chimp and Spade, and they're ready for it now. And as soon as they hear those shields crack, they know Storm Surge is active, and this is their chance. They can either get aggressive, try to take control of the situation, or they can play passive, knowing these guys are taking damage no matter what they do in this situation.
Yeah, they are just holding their cool. You can see how they're just sitting on the right-hand peak, sitting on that angle. They're waiting for them to make a move. They'll be ready for it. And you see Shotgun's already hitting big shots as well. Chimp, he is excited. You can see it in his eyes. He's hungry, and he'll hit the shot as well. Big stuff. No, cheeky 2 limbs for them as well, making it look easy.
Yeah, I believe they kind of went 2 separate directions with that Shockwave Hammer, went into 2 separate full duos. And sometimes that separation is just enough, even though you're trying to play aggressive, but another person who is down and needs to get back up is Clicks. You can see no Shockwave Hammer, no extra resources. Even though they're above the damage threshold, you know a refresh is imminent to come out of them.
Yeah, they're looking for it. They definitely see an opportunity. I want to make sure that they have a path towards the zone. It's another game where we see them sort of having to struggle to deal with a bunch of different teams around them. That was perfectly timed. Nave stood no chance. I'm sure he blinked and he didn't even realize he was down with how quickly they took him out.
I feel bad though, because Clix and Donnie are expecting a treasure trove of goods, and they get an empty